Previously, when I was still working and have to raise a family, I had no time to ponder over my roots. Now that I've retired several years ago, I started to think and ponder harder where my roots are and where my relatives overseas are. I have cousins here in Malaysia. We are quite close, and especially during Chengbeng period when I visited my parents with my two sisters, I really reflect back on my younger days and what my parents have gone through. So with that, I started to have a deeper interest in my ancestry, and I started to challenge myself to put up a Shin family tree, which I did. With the help of my cousins here in Malaysia, I tried to capture the information and put it into a family tree, and I was able to do it with my cousins over here. But I knew that I have some relatives in Hong Kong and China, because my cousin sister Yoklin has been to Donggun before, and she has met some of them before. So with that, I always aspire to be able to see some of my relatives in Hong Kong and China, which I have not seen ever before. So recently, in March the 10th, an ex-colleague of mine asked me whether I was keen to join them for a 9-day trip to Guangzhou. It was supposed to be a gastronomic and sightseeing trip. It was a very enjoyable trip. We laughed and we ate and all the good food, and but I still, at the back of my mind, I was still harboring a thought whether I can visit my relatives, try to contact my cousin sisters here and ask them whether do they have any contact of anyone in Hong Kong or Guangzhou, but they struggle to give me the information. Until almost towards the end of my trip in Guangzhou, by the stroke of luck, my cousin sister Yoklin's husband, Asing, he managed to contact one of my relatives in Canada, who gave him the contact number of my Hong Kong cousin. So last 2 days when I was there, I quickly called the number that he gave me, and after several tries, he answered the call. And then that's where we get connected. And so he was so happy to hear me, but he has not met me before. So he said that, okay, I will come over and see you in the hotel in the afternoon. So there we met and we chatted over dim sum lunch. Then he told me that actually it's actually quite a blessing that he just came back from Hong Kong. He usually travels between Hong Kong, lives in Hong Kong for part of the time and lives in Guangzhou part of the time. So he just arrived in Guangzhou 2 days earlier, and that's when I called him. And he also happened to be free the following day, that was the only day that I have before I fly back to Malaysia. So on that day, we met again. On that day, the following day, we met again at the hotel, and he booked a taxi to take us to my ancestral village, which is in Donggun, and in English it's called Donggun. The name of the village is Leongga Chin. So when we arrived at the entrance of that place, my Hong Kong cousin brother called Chung, he called again my mainland cousin brother, who came up from the house, which is about 100 meters away. So the moment he saw us, he was so happy, he ran towards us. Imagine a 60 over plus guy running towards and to welcome us. I was so much taken aback of the warm hospitality they offered. So over in mainland Dongguan province, I have 4 cousins, two cousin brother and 2 cousin sister. The earlier cousin brother from Hong Kong that who took me there, called Ah Chung. He also has some brothers sisters, but they are mainly staying in Hong Kong. So he also hardly go back to Donggun. So he was telling me the last time he went back to this ancestral village was more than 10 years ago. So things the journey from Guangzhou city to my ancestral village is by taxi is about 1.5 hours. It's not near as well, but the whole area is fully developed. You can see when I travel along the roads and the highways, I can see development on both sides. So when we arrived at the place, we met up with my cousin brothers and sisters. My 2 cousin brothers in Donggun, they live next to each other. Their homes are next to each other. So it was quite easy for us to visit both the families. All of them came out to welcome us. Then subsequently we also had the opportunity to visit the elder sister who lives some distance away, and the younger sisters as well. I was also very fortunate that they took me to my grandfather's house, which is a very small enclave. They told me that this area where all the Shins used to live, but right now is possibly quite diluted because of lack of job opportunities. The young people all move out. So we saw the place where the original ancestral house was, but the house was no longer there. The house is really crumbled, so it was just a piece of land there where we pay some respects to the place. My mainland cousins, brothers and sisters also took me to my grandparents' grave, where we also had the opportunity to pay respect to them. My relatives gathered together, all the 4 brothers gathered together, and they took us to a nice place for lunch. It was a very nice restaurant and plenty of live seafood, and they treated us lavishly. They ordered so much food that we cannot even finish. We have almost like 10 people, so we can't finish. And I guess it's typical of Chinese mainland hospitality. As a result of my trip to Guangzhou, I'm very impressed with how China has made positive strides to become a modern place now. I remembered my cousin brothers and sisters telling us that when they was there 40-50 years ago, the place is still very backward, and they really struggle for food and shelter, and they hardly have any good clothes to wear. But now all these have changed since China has opened up. This trip gives me a lasting memory and of the place I visited and the people I met, and I feel very blessed and that I was able to connect with my Hong Kong relatives and my China relatives. I have since then invited them to come over to Malaysia to visit us, and they are all very excited to hear that. My grandparents in China have 5 children, all of them born in China. They have 2 boys and 3 daughters. During the 1930s, there was widespread famine and disorder in China. So my grandparents took all the children and came over to, at the time, Malaya, to escape the hardships in China. and they live here for a while. While over here in Malaya, my grandmother passed away, and my grandfather decided to return to China, and he left behind 3 children, who are my elder uncle, my father, and a younger sister, and to left behind in Malaya, in Kuala Lumpur, to be looked after by some relatives here in KL. He then subsequently went back to China with 2 daughters, and with the ashes of my grandmother, and he was hoping that after he settled down in China, he will come back and maybe take them back to China, but that never happened. So my grandfather subsequently died in China. So these 2 aunties, I call them, who went back to China, one of them stayed in Hong Kong, and the other one stayed in Dongguan. So the Hong Kong side of the family is where the cousin brother Achong, whom I mentioned, I met from that mother, and the Dongguan part of my the relations is where my cousin brothers and sisters I met in Dongguan. They're from that mother. Guangzhou is a very interesting place. When we went there, we stayed in a hotel in Guangzhou for 2 nights. The moment we came down in the morning, the next day we came down from the hotel, I could hear very pleasant voice sounds across the road, and I look up and see there were lots of people. There's a park right in front of the hotel, big park, and there were people engaging in their morning activities. It's a hive of activity over there. There were old people singing Cantonese opera songs, backed by a whole troupe of Chinese musicians. There were people doing Tai Chi. There were people doing line dancing. It is a hive of activity, and when I see that, I feel a connection, because my father, my uncles and aunties who were here, they had a liking for all this Chinese music. In fact, my father also played Chinese musical instruments and sang Chinese opera songs together with my auntie here in Malaysia. So I felt like very much at home in Guangzhou. For the whole trip to Guangzhou, my wife accompanied me, and she was equally as impressed and excited to see the place. We left the place with very memorable times and memories to bring back.
我嘅善家嘅鄉下係叫做色龍村，但係我哋嗰日返鄉下，我嘅中國親戚帶我哋返鄉下，我嘅中國親戚講嗰個色龍村家冇咩人聽過咗，我哋睇到嗰啲路名喺嗰度係叫做梁家村。我想多謝我嘅馬來西亞嘅親戚阿星哥，去俾到我個電話號數，我可以聯絡到我嘅香港嘅表哥阿鐘。我又好多謝阿鐘，我表哥阿鐘，香港個表哥，佢啱啱又喺廣州，我哋去中國嗰時啱啱喺廣州，佢又可以抽到啲時間帶我哋返鄉下見我嘅東莞嘅親戚。我好多謝佢哋兩個。我仲有我想多謝我嘅朋友，我個好朋友阿興哥，去幫我做呢個 video， 做咗出嚟咧，就我哋大家可以睇啦，可以參觀睇啦。多謝大家。